Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of SkepTalk. And this time I am speaking with Shannon Q. How do you do? Long time no see.
It has been literal ages. I'm very, very excited that you and I get to do this today. I've been around very often, so it's always a pleasure.
So what else have you been doing in your absence from my presence, as it were?
Let's see. I've been playing a lot of soccer. I've been coaching soccer. I've been running a softball league. I've been doing my job. I'm on a couple of different community boards to, do community work with kids. I've been parenting. Periodically, I put effort into my relationship. Not as much as the other things, though. Nothing really. Not much. What have you been up to? What are you doing? Snakes? Lots of snakes. I know. I bet it's snakes.
Yeah. I fed 18 of them today, and I think it was a different set of 18 fed tomorrow or yesterday.
Oh, wow. You guys and your snakes. I have to come visit all the snakes. You and Matt. I got to see all the snakes soon.
Matt has he embarrasses me how efficient his situation is. I mean, he's just got all the gear and everything, and I just have a bunch of snakes stored in boxes here and there.
They're just all around the house, just one under the couch. Nothing about that surprises me because Matt is extra. He would do the most and in the most efficient way possible with the most research. I don't know if I'm allowed to come to America anymore, though. I tried to wear as many Canadian flags from my part of Canada as I could. So I ended up having to wear one of my softball. I've got a Nova Scotia flag, a New Brunswick flag, and a PEI flag on here, just so that everybody knows that I'm from Tariff land. In case don't want anybody to accidentally mistake me for an American right about so I've got all the Canadian flags.
Land. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the amazing thing for me. It's like when you talk to flat earthers and, young earth creationists, and you show them all this overwhelming evidence that they just won't accept. It doesn't matter what proof you have, and all over the place, everything, logic and hard facts, everything. They're just not going to get any of it. The people that voted overwhelmingly, the people who voted for this guy, still have not seen a problem like the whole rest of the planet sees. What would it take? When this guy who is, I don't know, what he's got an IQ of 75, he's been bankrupted something like 13 times. He's failed every single business he's ever attempted to head, right? I mean, the guy is a lifelong failure who has only ever been bailed out by the mob or by the Russians or by the Russian mob. So what does it take for these people to look at this guy and go, oh, he started an unnecessary tariff war and crashed the economy. And there goes the stock market and price of everything went up. And oh, look, he fired all the air traffic controllers and now the planes are crashing everywhere. When do they start putting things together and start realizing that it adds up?
I keep thinking it's got to be soon, but I'm losing hope.
Think that. And all the arguments that I've been having with creationists all my life, it's like there's never a bit of pattern recognition. There's never what they get proven wrong about something. Well, let's talk about this then. What about that? Right? There's never, ever, ever, ever an acknowledgement that, okay, I was wrong about this and that and that and that and that and that and everything up to now. There's never a recognition of this. I remember having an argument with somebody I've known my whole life, and I'm saying, how do you never notice that you're absolutely wrong about absolutely everything your entire fucking life? You never recognize the pattern. Oh, you think I'm right this time.
This is the one that I'm gonna get it. Now's the time. Hopefully it'll all be over soon. He's already canceled them 3 times, so who knows? Be a long 4 years. See what happens.
Well, Shannon, are you ready to jump into an in-depth philosophical, scientific, and theological discussion?
I am, but we can take calls instead.
Well, we're going to begin with John from, if I'm reading this right, I think that's Arkansas, and he's a theist who doesn't believe in a God. Okay, well, you misspelled theist then. but there is a source, and the body is not the only thing there is. Okay, so you're a theist who does not believe in a God. Just like they keep accusing me of being an atheist who does believe in a God. Let's see what this logic is about. John, can you hear us? Thank you.
What I'm saying is people use God and they thinking one thing, but they don't look at the history of how many gods have been with me and people on this planet. They think they are the creators. That is just something that they put on. There was a time, for what I'm understanding history, no one knew anything about no God. Hear me?
I would agree that they still don't.
Now, what I'm saying, I don't have to believe in the source that everything and everybody use. Now, trying to name it, trying to figure it out, it proves itself it exists. I don't have to do that. That's all I'm saying. I don't have to try to prove the source of all. There is no name that I know. Nobody can name it, the source of everything. It's proper. You understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
Okay,
and I would agree. I've always seen faith as simply pretending to know things you don't know. Asserting baseless speculation is a matter of fact.
Can't say what somebody else don't believe, but I know for a fact that the source is my being that I'm living in. I can look at the trees and all this here. I can look at a lot of things. Figuring it out? No, I ain't even trying to do that. So when people
what do you think the source
about
is?
God, they need to look up the history on the God that they are talking about. It's like Yahweh. You can find Yahweh was a military man. And all the other gods. You got gods all over the place. Hell, you a god. Trump a god. Hell, he can blow up the whole world if he want to.
Okay. So what's a god? What's that? John! I thought you're a little all over the place, and I'm losing the plot a little bit. So you think that there is that like gods that we would name like in the Bible or whatever other religious book you want, those gods don't particularly exist, but something akin to a god that's the source of everything exists. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that the gods that they are talking about didn't exist. What I'm saying that they are not what they think they are because they were men, people.
So you think Yahweh was like a dude, like with
worshiping.
Okay.
That's a fact. You can look up these gods and find out who they were. It's a god. They ain't got a god named Sin. Yeah. And somebody call you a sinner, and you say they were calling people sinners because they were following a god named Sin. Yeah. You can look this stuff up.
I have the good fortune that when I get to talk about the Bible with Bible scholars very often, and I don't know one who would say that Yahweh was a historic dude.
Look it up. Look it up. Pull it up online, and ask for Yahweh, a military man, and you'll see.
Degrees in this, and they don't agree with that.
Well, it don't matter to me. It's no supreme creator would tell people to go. Tell you to not to go kill nobody, give you some commandment. Then the first thing you turn around and say, go kill all the men, the women, the children, the babies, and every damn thing else and bring them the spoil. That's what the books say. The book and the God in the Bible is full of shit for as I'm concerned. And anybody that's telling me they dropping bombs over there right now on one over there fucking with Israel ain't nothing but some made up shit. And everybody that's got any sense know it. If you're going to support evil, then you need to take the source out because the source ain't making people do what the hell they doing. They're doing it on their own.
Okay. John. Okay, like let's try to follow a string of conversation. Do you believe in this is just a yes or no answer in anything that is like a god?
The only thing I've been raised with is the source. You use the source.
The
I
source.
use the source.
What is the source? What is the source? What's the source?
Everything I can see and all that I can't see too.
So your source.
So are you saying
the source
reality?
is just reality? Yeah. The source is just reality,
I'm
perceivable
saying
reality.
that's the only. See, I had a problem with religion for a good while. I'm a raised, baptized, early age, didn't understand nothing. And I'm all these things that I'm studying. I studied the Quran, I done studied Buddhism, I done studied the Bible,
Right.
I don't know how many times, Hinduism. I studied a lot of religions. But I never
Right.
could come to a conclusion about the way the gods that they were wishing had the people done.
How did you come to the conclusion
I
that
couldn't
this
deal with that.
source? How did you come to the conclusion that this source exists and is something like a god and isn't just the
And
perception of reality?
Are we in fact just talking about reality, or do you mean
Yeah.
something else?
I'm talking about reality as I understand it. I'm
Why
looking
call
at
it
a tree
source?
there. Wait a minute, let me explain this to you. I'm
Okay.
looking at a
Okay.
tree, and I say that's reality. But I don't know the full depth or the essence of the tree. I don't know how the tree seed got there. So that is not a full, no one sees anything in a full reality. Nobody do. We
Okay, so
only
you're saying
see-
like if you look at a tree, you're having the experience of viewing, like of seeing a tree, of perceiving a tree. But
yeah,
there's
now
more
the reality,
to it than
I don't
that.
know the. Go
Like
ahead.
there's how the tree got there. There is what the tree might do next. There's the atoms that constitute the tree. Like all of those things are components of the whole that is the tree, but you're just having a visual experience of the tree. Is that what you're saying?
But in order to see the whole tree, in order to see anything in existence, the only way I can really see it, if I brought it into existence myself, then I can say, I know the tree.
Okay, so you can't
So
know
Because I can name the tree.
until you
If you didn't create the tree, you can't see the tree.
I
is
know
what you
I
just told
did not say in order for me to see it in reality, I would have to be the one that brought it into existence. I didn't say
I don't agree with
created
that.
it. You
I'm
see?
very confused.
Matter of fact, we got a real problem with all kinds of stuff going on. And
okay. No, we need to get back to the John. We need to get back to that. Like, we need to stay on like one line because I'm still not understanding what the source is, and if I can't get to what it is, I may have to get to the next caller. Because
well, go ahead. Let me ask me the question.
Do you think that you manifest reality, like everything that you experience, you are the source of it? So like the locus of all reality is you? Is that what you're saying?
Look, it's like water. We live in water. Now if you're gonna let me explain what I'm talking about, I explain. We actually live literally in water. We got oxygen, we got ice, we got gas. 3 phases of water that we really live in. But no one looks at the as water. No one looks at. I'm saying that I am the source and the source is me. And I don't care damn whether you believe it or not. I can't be nothing but that I come from.
So you manifested me in this conversation.
I only can be that I come from wherever the hell it come from. And that's all your ass can be too. You can't be, you living in, you using power. You didn't make your goddamn power. You didn't give yourself no power. But see, by you being a fuckerwood, you don't know. My ancestors go back 76 to 78 trillion damn years. You don't know shit, really. Neither one of y'all. You don't know that. You're a peckerwood, ain't been on the planet for 6,000 years. How in the hell you know something? You don't know. Kind of fuck with y'all.
Yeah.
Oh,
that reminds me of a video I uploaded just in the last 24 hours. 76 trillion years. That's a new one. In a universe that's less than 14 billion years old. That's amazing.
So he thinks that he creates reality.
I think he
that's
does.
and he
And the
picked
only way he
this
can
one
see
too. Like,
something is if he called it into existence.
and I mean, oxygen's also not water. I mean, people acknowledge that clouds are water, but okay, that was okay. I mean, if you
We
had the
have
power to
humidity
manifest
in the
any
air.
reality, and
Yeah.
you pick this one, that seems like you could make better choices than this. There is humidity in the air. I agree. Yeah, but we're not breathing it. We're not respirating H2O
Yeah.
molecule. Yeah. Okay. All
Well,
right.
somehow
Well,
or
that
other, and
was
I didn't do
interesting
it.
appetizer.
But yeah, we lost our guest.
Oh,
I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So we're going to have to move
Maybe
on to a different call, but
John
in just a
created
moment,
a
let me make
version of reality where we couldn't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah, and can you see, Shannon, the list of upcoming events? I thought I had
Can
it on here.
I?
Yeah,
I sure can.
read them off for me, would you please?
Today it's
I'm looking for one for
SkepTalk
last week,
with
accidentally.
what is today? Today's the 10th, right? Yeah. So today is
Yep.
SkepTalk with Aron and I. And then tomorrow on Tuesday at 6 p.m., and these are CST, it is Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Promise. And then on Wednesday, it is the Hang Up with the effervescent Matthew Delahunty. Then on Thursday, it's the Transatlantic Call-In Show with Arden. And then there's, of course, the 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Sunday shows, the Sunday Show and Sunday After Dark. We don't have any hosts listed for them yet. It will be a surprise. You guys will just have to tune in to find out. Pay attention to this space. I think I saw Forrest was on one of them. I think I saw an upcoming show with Forrest, but I'm not sure which one. And it's not on my charts, so it doesn't get read. Those are the rules.
We've only got a couple of calls lined up. They are both atheists. And if you are somebody if you have a disagreement, if you have a philosophical or scientific bone that you want to pick with either of us, do call in. This is the moment to do that. All the time I'm hearing from these people saying, yeah, all these people are telling me, yeah, I would waste you in a debate. You're afraid to debate me. Well, here I am. Look how afraid I am. Where are you? So,
I know.
You really
every
want to
time.
pretend that if you really want to pretend that I'm afraid of you, then just realize you're the one that's not calling in tonight. Just like every other week. Yep. If you really think you got
and the time after that.
Yep. So we're going to have to talk to another atheist here. And I'm going to pick him up as we got him. This one is Michael in Michigan. And this is a question for Shannon.
Yes, how you guys doing tonight?
Very well, very well. Good to hear from you.
What would you like to discuss today?
So I've heard, and I haven't looked into like peer-reviewed studies about it, but like I have an internal monologue, you know, a voice in my head, and I've heard that you know some people don't have it, and it could be as many as 30 to 50%. And I'm just wondering. I have a speculation, because I use my inner monologue to mull things over and think about things, and run thought experiments and think rationally about things. And I'm wondering if the 30 to 50% of people that don't have that may lack the ability to do that, and therefore not have as well of an ability to critically think about things. And that may explain, things like 30% of the country voting for Donald Trump, or things like that.
So I hear what you're saying. I've often wondered the same thing, because I depend on my inner monologue, on talking to myself in my own mind to try to reason things out, asking myself questions, and then seeking the answers, which explanations better fit the available evidence to determine what we know. I don't know how people make decisions without being able to do that. And your question kind of assumes that it's those other people that don't. Those other people don't have the inner monologue, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the ability. They clearly have the ability. Would we, if we didn't have that inner monologue? I don't know how I would reason anything if I couldn't talk it through in my own mind.
Right. And run like the opposing arguments and see what rebuttals I would come up with, before even
anything coming out of my mouth, you know.
Yeah.
But what if you were like an abstract visual thinker that was essentially able to create like Venn diagrams in your head for analysis? That's not something I can do because I'm not a visual thinker. Like I think in like streams of consciousness that are abstract, go down multiple different paths, and it's in auditory like language, like it's in linguistic form. Like I'm speaking to myself in my head in English. Now, I often think actually that because I have, so many different like converging and diverging like verbal tracks in my head simultaneously, that that's actually kind of a hindrance, like to the point that like there's always paper around me because I have to physically like write things down in order to visualize how things go, like in order to like pull out the relevant information. I often have to like actually get it out of my head and organize it externally. So I'm not entirely certain that I would support that hypothesis because I think it also like minimalizes the diversity of thought types that we have, like the different types of processing that people have. Like some people may have the ability, like they may have some form of like muted inner monologue, like not as, loud, as frequent, and as disorganized as mine, but also have the ability to make like really strong visual images in their mind. And that coupling together may be better in certain instances, and maybe a detriment in other. Like if you need to make predictions and future projections, it's better to create multiple models. So I'm great at future projection because I create multiple models in my head, but maybe not great in any given moment because there's so much noise. So I think it may be a bit simplistic, potentially.
I just try to
Not
kind
to,
of talk to myself
poo-poo on it.
Yeah. I mean,
But they're my friends. You don't have any friends.
sorry. But I also
No, and
weigh
I'm not
multiple
trying to say-
hypotheses at once, and I will make notes because my memory is not going to retain all of this, and I have to use words to reason out certain situations, and I don't know how people, and I know that people do, that they are able to work out all of these things without the apparatus that I need, and that I can't say that they're without something because clearly I'm the one without it.
Yeah, it's interesting that people have so many different modalities for perception.
Yeah, and I obviously I can't get inside anybody else's head to know how they're processing things, and outwardly you can't, like I can't tell if somebody has an inner monologue or not, just from interacting with them, and I don't know how they necessarily think about things, but from what I understand and reading like random Reddit posts where people talk about it, they just don't have like a voice in their head. They just and it brings to mind people that you ask them like, do you just say the first thing that comes into your mind? And they're like, yeah, don't you? And I'm like, no, I think about it first, and then I'm like, should I say that? And maybe I can say it this way better. And then I say, that I mold it over in that 2 seconds, the better way to say it. And I also, when I'm thinking, like if I'm going to argue with a Trump supporter or a creationist or a theist, okay, if I say this, what is the potential rebuttal going to be, and what am I going to say to that? And I don't know if that process, is if that doesn't happen in somebody else's brain, if they're just unable to like think all the way through the process and all the way through the argument. And I just wonder if they're like, because I understand you're not a clinical psychologist, but
No.
you are. You do have a doctorate in psychology, and I was just wondering if there
I don't have a
has been any
doctorate.
correlation to say. Oh, okay.
Not a doctorate.
Sorry,
Just a degree. No,
some
that's
kind
fair.
of degree in psychology.
I'm glad you think I'm that smart. Thank you so much. Super appreciative of that.
Yeah, could have fooled me. Yeah, no. But I just wonder if there has been any correlation to maybe religious belief and no inner monologue, or say conservative values and no inner monologue, or anything like that.
See, I don't know if there's any correlations to
see
anything like
relation,
that.
no.
Yeah, but I mean, there may be, if there is, that I'm not familiar with it and haven't been exposed to it. I know that people who have um, active inner monologues, that tends to correlate with ADHD, and it also tends to correlate with being able to future project multiple models with potential outcomes, and then do like a cost benefit analysis of which is the best potential action as a result. So like I know that like those types of deliberations are maybe stronger types of deliberations, like are like have better overall outcomes potentially, like just because you're presenting yourself with a plethora of choice. But what that also does and is coupled with is actually like some anxiety, because you're consistently future projecting a bunch of possible outcomes. You know you can't control every variable, even though you have multiple available to you, and there's still an uncertainty in the next step. And also you're constantly considering how to avoid negative outcomes, and that's an anxiolytic position to be in. So the two things I know for a fact it's correlated with is ADHD and anxiety. So, not that which can be controlled, but yeah, those are things that I know it's correlated with. It's positive things as well, I'm sure, but those are things that I do know it's correlated with. It's interesting though, thinking about all of the different modalities that people process thought in. I thought about this a lot, and one of the things that struck me about it was when I realized other people, like when I started studying psychology, and I always thought, like, we take for granted that the way that we process information is probably the way that most other people do, right? Like we think that we're just like everybody else, and even though there's such a wide variation of neurodivergence. And I was thinking about once I realized, oh, okay, well, I have an inner monologue. If you've never had a linguistic auditory experience of any kind, like if you were a deaf person, to me, that's the place I put myself in. I was like, well, they clearly have like the same sort of vibrant, cognitively active inner life that I have, but they don't have that. Like they just definitionally have never had the experience on which they would need to base it on. So it looks like something, and they still have like an active cognitive inner life, but it doesn't look like hearing like auditory linguistic experiences inside your head. It can't, like it just definitionally can't, because they have no like locus of reference from which to manifest that cognitive experience. So I thought about that initially and was like, okay, well, they have the same type of vibrant inner life intellect that I do without the possibility of that. Therefore, they're like the spectrum must be wide, and it can't lean in any one direction towards any specific primary modality, or they would be at an abject like detriment, like from jump, and they're not from like intellectual, cognitive, emotional, experiential aspects, even though they have to think differently than me.
I was wondering why he directed this question specifically to you, but I didn't realize that you were posing as a psychologist.
I do have a degree in it, but yeah, no, I play one on TV. I play one on TV. I do have a degree in cognitive neuroscience, but not a doctorate. Let's be clear on that. I never went that far. I sold out first. I sold way out. Went into business so that I could pay for my kid to eat, apparently, because you have to do that. Government says I'm supposed to. Fun conversation, though.
Oh yeah, I'm just.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, just like you and Aron, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how somebody can have all the facts of reality presented to them and come to different conclusions than I do. So, and that was just a interesting train of thought I went down, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a fun cognitive experiment, talking about cognitive experiments.
Yeah, and I know we can't actually answer the question, but I hope that we've adequately addressed it.
Yeah. No, you guys have been very helpful, and I'm big fans of both of you, so I'll keep fighting the good fight, and hope you guys do too.
Thank you kindly. Good night, Michael.
Have a good night.
Okay, we have a theist on the line, although times in the past the theist turns out not to be real, but let's hope that this one is. And let's talk to Mark in South Carolina.
Hello.
How you do?
Yes, I'm a theist. Fine, and you?
Right. It's all right. It's all right. What is your quandary, query, issue, or whatever?
Well, I hear that, who's it, Shannon? She wants to talk about souls, but I also like to talk about the afterlife and how, the amazing Randy's $1 million challenge for psychics, that was rigged.
How?
I still believe it.
How?
How was it rigged? Well, he never told.
How was it rigged?
Well, he was. I saw on Larry King. Well, he just would always change the rules so that the psychics knew that they could not win because they're psychic.
What?
If they were psychic, would the rules not? The rules wouldn't matter if there was. if you're capable of magic, there are no rules that can constrain you if you are capable of magic. What he was doing was setting
because the psychic is going to see that coming, right? Well, the psychic is going to know what the rules are and how to satisfy those rules.
Right, because it's just too easy because these psychics are real. Randy was an atheist,
so he didn't psychics are real.
Supernatural. Yeah.
If the psychics are real, then how come they never predicted what these rules are going to? How come they never predicted anything? How come they never predicted 9/11? How come they never predicted the lottery?
Well, I can't tell you about. I don't know about predicting the future.
Okay, but how about reading minds then? How come they fail consistently at that?
Dead are legitimate. Pardon?
Well, that's a little difficult because when you die, you see, you don't talk anymore. That's one of the aspects of being dead.
Right.
Death. You stop talking. Most of us.
But they
stop talking.
They communicate through the medium.
But you can't because you're dead. Because you're dead. And there's no afterlife. There is no soul. There is no dualism. We are our physical bodies, and our consciousness, our personalities or whatever cannot be removed from the physical being and put into a different physical being, or to live without, just out in the ether somewhere. None of that is possible.
Well, there are two reasons that you are mistaken. One of them is if you read up on the near-death experiences.
Yes, I've read to death on near-death experiences. And I wish Susan Blackmore was one of the longtime researchers in that, and she eventually gave up on it because after 50 years of research, they still got nothing. They have very few instances that don't have a clear explanation. After 50 years, nothing.
No, there are 9 million near-death experiences logged in the United States.
And there are several in Hindu countries as well, and I've seen some of them. How would you deal with the fact that Hindus come back with have these near-death experiences wherein they meet their gods and come back with what they call proof of reincarnation, which, if it was correct, would disprove Christianity. How do you explain that?
Well, no. Well, okay.
I can explain it.
Reincarnation was once part of Christianity.
What?
It was banned from Christianity in 553.
What was part of Christianity?
Justinian I.
What was part of Christianity?
Reincarnation was barred from Christianity.
It was barred from Christians said no one else could, they just at one point in time, I guess, were like, guess what? Nobody gets to reincarnate anymore.
So they never had that belief. They had the original belief that when you die, you're dead. And this was the Jewish Sheol, or the Greek version of Hades, where everybody, whether they were good or bad, all went to the same land of the dead to be dead. There was nobody doing things in the land of the dead. They're dead there. Did we lose our guy?
Oh, I hope not, because I had things I wanted to ask him.
Yeah, he must have dropped.
People don't want to. What is happening today?
Well, I'm afraid that was about to be a really good conversation, but I don't know what happened.
I'm sad. I really wanted to talk to him about sigma-6 receptors. I'm sad.
There's a lot we could have covered. We could have made a whole show out of this guy.
I know. I wanted to know how, there's so many naturalistic explanations, and it's almost like what you were talking about how the cultural context kind of elicits and the theological context in which you were raised elicits a specific type of near-death experience that like exists only within that culture, sort of like glossolalia, right? Like if you're talking in tongues, you're only using the phonemes of this and morphemes of like, well, more so phonemes of the specific language that you yourself are a native speaker of.
Yep.
And I
And
wanted to talk to him about
there's nobody
DMT and
that can
sigma 6
communicate.
receptors and
Any two
cellular
people
aspiration.
speaking in tongues can never talk to each other and intelligibly. That to me is a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
So if it was really, if it was really speaking in tongues, you'd be able to show up at that church, say your gibberish. The other person would understand that gibberish. You would maintain a conversation, both of you speaking gibberish and understanding what the other one is saying. And then anybody else that speaks gibberish too would also understand you. That didn't happen.
You'd be able to separate them. That would be a fun experiment. Like get them to like talk to each other, like putting two Furbies in front of each other, get them to just spit nonsense at each other, and then separate them and see if they both recount the conversation the same way. That would be a fun experiment. And now I don't get to talk about cellular hypoxia because he's ruined my day. I was going to talk about cellular hypoxia, and now no one gets to. So
I wish we could jump into that, and maybe if we run drive callers, we can come back to that. So
we could cycle back and talk about cellular hypoxia, just like at every good party I've ever been to. All right, fine.
All right, so we've got another caller, and this one kind of interests me. This is somebody who identifies as a live nihilist. They're in India, and they want to talk about Eastern religion. Okay. So, a live nihilist.
Yeah.
They're very good. So, state the topic of your interest.
Yeah, I want to discuss about your views on this Advaita Vedanta or the Advaita philosophy from the Hindu philosophy, Eastern religion.
Okay. I don't know a whole lot about it. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, but I have not read the Upanishads, which is where I understand most of the philosophy comes from.
Yeah, Advaita Vedanta states that most of the people, or in most of even Hinduism, there is considered that soul is something else and you are something else, God is something else and you are something else. But Advaita tries to say that there is no difference between God and you. There is no difference between soul and you. There is only you. You are the part of Brahman, and Brahman is some kind of superior power, which is made up of all of our consciousness, your consciousness and my consciousness, made up to be Brahman. That's my understanding of Brahman.
Are you saying consciousness? Is that what you said?
Yeah. In easier terms, Spinoza's God, but also picking out something out of the Spinoza's God theory to make it Advaita. Or in easy but most stricter version of Spinoza's God is kind of Advaita Vedanta.
I'm not sure I heard the last bit of that.
Yeah, I was not able to make all of that out. I believed, but I understood that you were saying that there is no soul, that we are. It's not like we have a body and a soul. That there is just us, and then something about Brahman, and I didn't catch a whole lot of that beyond that. That your phone was chopping. It's not doing it now, but it was chopping before.
Yeah.
Say again.
It means to say that it is really complicated even for me too. So it is hard to me even explain to you. It's a non-dualist thing. Isn't there any philosophy you ever heard of that says that God is nothing but a supreme power? I believe you have heard this kind of theories for God.
The God's a supreme power.
We need to get a definition of God, because I mean, supreme power. What even is that? Because there are people who say, well, they believe in God and they just want to get. They're only saying it to get out of the conversation, and then they say, when pressed, they say, well, and I believe that God is the universe. Well, then you literally don't believe in God.
Yeah,
And it's difficult to get them
that's the
pressed
part.
on that. I mean, Albert Einstein is famously heralded as a scientist who believed in God, but when he described it in the letters to his friends, he said that from the Christian perspective, he should be considered an atheist, that he does not believe in a personal God. He doesn't believe in the Bible. He doesn't believe in any of that nonsense. He just, what he admires is the universe as far as our science can reveal it. So that's very different than a God.
Yeah. See, the reemerge of the Hinduism, and the thing happening is after a long political thing going on in India, there is starting to be a reemerge, a new value of Hinduism. So now they have picked up. I'm atheist, so I am talking from atheist perspective. So now they have picked this thing, the Advaita philosophy, which is given by Adi Shankaracharya. And in this philosophy, they means to say that universe is made it itself, means the thing we believe in, that universe can
Universe is
be
made of. I didn't catch all that. The universe is made of something.
No. I mean to say that there is no creator behind the universe, but universe needs
There's no
to be
creator
sustained.
behind the universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There is no creator behind the universe, but the universe needs to be sustained, and that is Brahman, and that is something, the superior power in this philosophy.
Wait, can you
So
stop for a
far I
second? I just want to make sure
understood.
I'm understanding. One sec. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So, nothing created the universe and all of physical reality, but it needs to be sustained. Like something needs to happen to keep the engine moving, and that is Brahman.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I'm a little confused at that too, because the sustainer is Vishnu, isn't it? Or am I going off track?
Yeah, it is.
Brahma is the creator,
Vishnu and
Shiva's the destroyer, and Vishnu is the sustainer. Yes?
Yeah. Do you want me to explain the whole thing? Because
if you see a problem, if you see a problem in my understanding, I want you to correct that. If you can do so quickly, if it's important.
See, there are distinctions in God. There is even said that Brahma is also made by a form of Vishnu, who created these three gods: Brahma, Vishnu, and the destroyer, Maheshwar or the Shiva.
Okay, hold on a second. So Brahma was created by a form of Vishnu. Brahma, the creator, was himself created by Vishnu, the sustainer, who's not the creator. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, at least the one as it is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Krishna is the creator of the gods.
Yeah. Here is the thing. This is I also came to know about this thing recently, that the Bhagavad Gita Krishna is the representation of the means. See, there is the Vishnu, whose form is Krishna. You getting me?
Krishna said that he was the ultimate or the supreme. He said he was the supreme personality of the Godhead and the original source of all the gods, and that he created the multiverse.
Yeah. So here he is representing the Mahavishnu, who created Brahma, who created the other three deities.
I didn't.
Hinduism is I mean to say that it would be easier. I do it this way. First we have to put what we have understood till now about Hinduism a bit side to get this new one. It says that it put Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar, the three deities. I believe you heard this trio in Bhagavad Gita, I think.
So there's three deities. Is that what you're saying? Like let's put everything that Aron has read and people know about Hinduism aside, and your belief system that you're attempting to articulate to us. there are 3
No,
deities.
no,
Is that correct?
this is, let me
No.
correct one thing. And this is not my
Okay.
belief system. I means to say, I am stuck between a point of atheism and agnosticism. Okay.
Okay.
So
So what are
if
we talking about? Well, I'm losing the
I
track
want
of
to get
what you want to get our opinion
to-
on it.
yeah, I
On
want to
this
get the
ver-
opinion on this concept.
Oh, okay. Well, the concept that the universe needs some sort of like cognitive, conscious being, and all of reality needs that in order for it to be sustained, seems like nonsense to me, especially if you're divorcing it from that universe itself being created. There seems like there's a lot of steps missing there. Like there's a lot of things that are required to link it just existing, just on base principles, to it requiring some external aware conscious force to sustain its existence, because it was pre-existing, just definitionally, according to you. Like it existed, came into existence without the requirement to be sustained. So what introduced that requirement? That would need to be explained to me. Where did these conscious beings come from if they're separate from a universe that existed without them, irrespective of them? And why did they need to interject themselves? How did they come across this thing that existed separate from them without their intervention prior? Like there's just a lot of questions that, like, it seems like you could just explain all of reality without, that whole ordeal taking place.
Here comes the good old fine-tuning argument, which fries up my brain too. But hear me out. It says that when people, what I get it, that when people try to explain God using fine-tuning argument, it may be a bit hard. But when they try to explain that God is not some creator or something, but rather means a user manual kind of thing who helps to sort the universe. They say that universe got created out of say for nothing. But I know how universe came into existence. And in easy language, say for universe didn't have a creator, and it can create itself. But it consists of randomness, and that randomness has to be solved. So life exists, and for which they put this Brahman, God, etc., in the place.
So it seems like the theology itself can't explain the existence of the universe, so it needed to inject itself elsewhere in order to justify its own existence, so that it could be sustained cognitively.
Yeah, exactly.
So why not
Exactly.
just, if it's becoming increasingly unnecessary to make any explanation, to utilize to explain anything, and in fact you're having to find more and more hidey holes to put it in order for it to justify its existence in relationship to the universe and reality at all, then at what point in time do you just say, maybe we don't need to believe this at all, and we can just operate in reality without trying desperately to white knuckle this specific set of deities that are becoming more and more useless in explaining anything in the reality around us? That would be my position towards it.
One of the things I like
perfect.
about Hinduism is the old earth aspect that they have. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about how the world functions in the dream of Brahma lasts 4,320,000,000 years, and then at the end starts over again. And then I had Hindus telling me in the 70s, there was somebody published something where I know now that they're saying that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, but they were arguing in the 70s that 4.32 billion is what the Hindus were saying in the Bhagavad Gita, so it's really close. So now we have to give credence.
We finally found the ones that nailed it, Aron. They win. Better than the 6,000, that's for sure.
Yeah, Aron. see this thing. What's happening is that first of all, Hinduism brought up the caste system. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, you have read that verse, I believe, Chaturvarnam Maya Srishtam Gun Karma Vivajita. Have you heard this?
The thing that irritated me the most about reading that was because I was already kind of conditioned to I think I was predisposed to like Hinduism, and the only Hinduism that we ever get in the United States typically is Krishna, is the Bhakti, which I know Hindus in India will say, well, that's not remotely mainstream. Well, in the United States, it is. This is how Hinduism is most often represented. But when I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was wanting to find. When I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was wanting to find in Krishna a character that was noble, somebody to look up to, somebody with pearls of wisdom in his words. And what I got out of that, the introduction shows King Arjuna, and I loved him right at the very beginning of the book. He says he's not going to go to war with all of his family and friends, that he would rather lay down his arms and his life than to go to war against his own kin and fellows and all of that. And then Krishna comes in with some stupid bullshit that says, no, this is your caste. You're in the warrior caste. You have to kill them. And then the ridiculous explanation of you're only killing their bodies, and not their soul. They're going to come back. You kill the body, the soul comes back. Well, if that's the case, if it's okay to go kill people because you're only killing the bodies, then why can we not kill the cows? So that there's just inconsistency everywhere. So I went into the Bhagavad Gita wanting to like it, wanting to appreciate Lord Krishna, and I came out of it very quickly realizing that this guy's just an arrogant, narcissistic ass.
I believe what they are trying to do. Maybe you are quoting the Western Hinduism is maybe because of ISKCON. Heard of this foundation?
I'm sorry, because of, did you say Islam?
ISKCON.
Oh, ISKCON. I'm sorry. Yes, we don't pronounce it that way in the States, but yes, I know what you're talking about. I always call it ISKCON, and and that's we have one of their temples here in downtown Dallas, and when vegetarian atheists come through town, we usually take them there because it's quite a treat. Their temple has a magnificent restaurant, wonderful ambiance, all vegetarian, of course. And it's always kind of a treat to see, to go on a Sunday when they meet, because most people have the days off from work, so that's when they do it, and see the unveiling of the deity. And for Westerners, that's an interesting thing to observe.
Yeah. What I believe ISKCON is trying to do with the foreigners who haven't lived in India and seen the condition Hinduism led into India, is that they are trying to preach a version of Buddha. Buddha's kind of the charma, maybe I'm spelling this word wrong, Buddha's charma and the Buddha's way of speaking, the articulating of words, and sometimes his philosophies too. I believe that.
You didn't. I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly. Did you say Buddha?
Yeah, Buddha.
Buddha? Buddhism.
Yeah, Buddha. Buddhism.
Okay, I read something else. I can't remember which book it was, but I read some passage that talked about how Buddha was an atheist, but he was in secret. He was a secret disguise for Shiva, who he was like the 8th incarnation of Shiva, who was sent down to trick the atheists, to prank them.
You brought up the best topic ever. I have been recently researching about this. You have brought up the best topic. I have been recently researching about these things, that how he belongs to Hinduism, etc. And I talked to proper Buddhists, Theravada Buddhists, and etc.
Okay.
And the traditional Buddhists means they haven't gone. They are not from Navyana. Navyana is a Buddhism that given by Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who is the main who played a main role in India's constitution. Okay, it's Theravada is very old. You might know Theravada Mahayana Buddhism.
I'm afraid I did
Theravada
not
Mahayana.
understand most of that.
And we've also got a bunch of other calls to take at some point in the near future
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to go any further with that. The connection's not really good. It's hard to understand what you're saying. I'm going to blame the connection more than anything else.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can I just put it in small words and just leave before leaving people with this thing that Buddha is someone who came down to trick people and etc. Just to
Buddha is someone who claimed what?
No, I want to.
Did anybody else understand that? Shannon, did you get that?
Buddha is someone who came to trick people, etc. Is what I heard.
No. I want to clear this. There are 27. There are 27 Purva Buddha. Means before Buddha, there are 27 other Buddhas in considered, and out of 3 Buddhas, we even found historic evidences. So Buddha wasn't someone who came out of Hinduism. It was a religion in itself. It's a false
you're saying
claim by Hinduism.
Buddhism arose the common history is that Buddhism was an offshoot of Hinduism or was based on Hinduism originally, but you're saying it's completely independent.
Yeah, Buddhist scholar, not a single Buddhist scholar except this thing. There is a very rich Buddhist history which has been hidden down by the Hindu scholars because of their bias, of course. It has been
there's a rich Buddhist
work.
You're saying there's a rich Buddhist history, and Hindu scholars are actively conspiring to suppress it, to hide it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know enough about that to speculate or platform it. Truthfully.
Yeah, I'm afraid
we're veering into conspiracy theory territory that's like way out of my lane. And
not conspiracy theory. Simply, if I quote in one of the popular Hindu texts, I just forgot its name.
Okay.
Gotcha. It strictly says that not to follow Buddha's ideology, etc., and how Buddha is a Gnostic person, atheist person who doesn't believe in Vedas.
Okay, we're not at this point in time having a conversation though. We're just listening to you tell us various things. So I'm going to let you go because there's lots of other people waiting to have a dialogue. I appreciate the conversation.
My bad.
And have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Shannon, I see a theist in the chat. You want or in the queue? Want to pull that one?
Yeah, sure. Robert, is that who it is?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, Robert, you're on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello. Good evening. I saw the title of the YouTube stream, and I thought I'd make a comment on it. I've watched both your work before. I used to be more kind of atheist and agnostic, and I appreciated what you did back then. But on the specific topic of souls, souls, that was one of the things that kind of I had strong feelings about, because I had an experience with my dad where certain sort of neurological things happened which kind of shook my belief in souls. So I understand the kind of material arguments against souls and that kind of thing. But I know since then though, there've been other sort of things about sort of theism versus atheism more broadly that have nudged me in the other direction. And the other thing is that since you're saying that kind of souls are dead, that's the title of the YouTube stream. I'm not sure if you're
They
aware.
would have to have existed and been alive to be died to die. But I mean, I think that's hyperbole.
Yeah, I'm not saying that souls are dead. I'm saying that they don't exist.
Yeah.
The notion of a soul is that we have this magical, which means supernatural. We have this supernatural, magical, miraculous, alternative self that's somehow living inside of ourselves, and that when we die, then this inner magic self, the spirit, whatever, comes out and wanders around. That we know came from the idea that people didn't understand that air was particulate matter, but they knew that you would die if you can't breathe. And they also knew that if somebody sneezed or coughed in your face, and they're sick, you would get the same sickness that they did. So they correlated that it was a supernatural thing. That when you have tornadoes and when you make a really big fire, it also makes a tornado. And so they're having this notion of a spiritual universe in addition to the physical one. And then they developed so much mythology based on that when they started figuring out what clouds really are, what storms really are, what volcanoes really are, and they had material explanations that no longer exactly fit what the mythology that they had built up for the supernatural. There remains no evidence of a supernatural. Not only is there not evidence of it exactly where it would be if souls were real, there is specific evidence against it.
Yeah,
like a lot of evidence against it. I don't think that it's a viable concept at all. If you know anything about neuroscience, I don't think that it's even a conceivably viable concept.
And then, while she has a degree in psychology, I've talked to a couple of famous neuroscientists, Patricia Churchland and Daniel Dennett, both of whom told me that there's no established possibility, there's no support for mind-body dualism, for the notion of a soul. Beyond that, I talked to I did private interviews with a half a dozen over email with a half a dozen neuroscientists, and then I got one to get on camera with me, and they all had the same opinion. There is no soul. We are our bodies. When we die, our consciousness dies with us. Our consciousness is generated by the physical brain, by electrical synapses. And when that stops, when you discharge the capacitors in the brain, that's it. That's all. Good night, Irene. Ain't no coming back. Or you can't exist outside of the body either.
Well, yeah, definitely the sort of old-fashioned conceptions of souls have taken a battering, and if you want to reconcile,
what's your conception of it? Like, let's hear the one that works. I want to hear the one that works. I'm always interested in that. Like, which one's the one that works?
Yeah, I think the one with the least problems would be kind of thinking of sort of the body as a kind of antenna, and your soul being somewhere else, and so in that case you can say like, oh, all these problems with, like, I don't know, people having totally different personalities after they have a brain injury. That's a big problem for the old-fashioned conception of a soul, but it's not such a problem because then you say, oh, well, that's just a problem with the antenna or receiver, and so it's not a problem with the soul itself. So you can think.
I think sodium and potassium ions, and I think like sodium and potassium ions are the biggest problem for the soul. So even if it's an antenna, you have an interaction problem, right? There's no mechanism of interaction between the brain, which you demonstrably need to have thoughts, and to even have this conversation, to think about it, to like even have the conception of the soul exist in your mind. You need to be able to have those thoughts. In order to have those thoughts, we can like trace that those neurons are firing, and we know what causes those neurons to fire, right? Like that's just demonstrably the case, and we know what causes neurons to fire, and we know what causes those electrical signals to go down the dendrites through the like myelinated dendrites all to the other neurons, so that we can continue to have thoughts and then have more complex thoughts and move our bodies and everything. And we know what causes that neuron to fire is an action potential. That action potential happens when there's a certain concentration of sodium and potassium ions on either side of that neuronal cell membrane, and then a chemical called ATP is released by the mitochondria within that cell membrane to open up the threshold gate so that those sodium and potassium ions can go to rush to either side of the ion to generate the electrical impulse to cause that neuron to fire. So those are all physical things that we can measure, we can look at. They're material things. So those sodium and potassium ions need to be in a certain constitution on either side of the cell membrane, like a certain configuration, a certain threshold, in order for that neuron to fire. So if they're not there in that configuration, that neuron doesn't fire for you to have that thought. Demonstrably the case, absolute fucking fact. There's no arguing that. That's true. Where does the soul insert itself into that process? Is the soul using little tweezers to move sodium and potassium ions to either side of the cell membrane? Is the soul generating the ATP that like shoots out of the mitochondria? Is the soul manifesting sodium and potassium ions into existence? Is it somehow replacing them with just its own form of electrical impulse, which begs the question, how does it produce electricity? How does it know which neurons to fire? How does it select them? Does it have its own consciousness so that it knows which ones to interact with? Why don't we see any of that happening? Why, when we look at an MRI, do we not see sodium and potassium ions just manifesting themselves in like great scale all over our brain? Why do we instead see that it's happening in like predictable sequences? And like there's a million questions. So explain which part of that process is the antenna to me, and I might get it.
Sure. Yeah. So it's just there's a lot of questions, and so I need to try and sort of compose myself a little. So yeah, but basically,
Sure.
like, we don't know for sure, right, whether all the kind of electrical processes are deterministic or non-deterministic, because chemical reactions, they're subject to the exact positions of electrons within the sort of wave function, or whatever you want to call it, and we don't know whether that's deterministic or not. And so, if it's not deterministic, then, or at least not deterministic to anything kind of physical, then I can say that there's room for the soul to interact there.
So I have to wonder what meaning are you using for deterministic?
Yeah, that's my question. These are physical processes, right? Like I just explained.
I mean that outcomes are fully determined by like prior conditions.
They are. Like, so
well,
can you have a thought without a neuron firing? Like, can you have a thought without neuronal activity, without cellular activity? And you can't have a thought without neuronal activity. Do we know what makes neurons fire?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we know the physical properties, like the physical environmental like context that need, like the preconditions, the required preconditions for a neuron to fire? Are there required preconditions for a neuron to fire?
There are, but some of those preconditions
that's it. That's just it.
No,
what quantum
because
effect?
You didn't listen to what I said earlier. Like, yeah, are there? Does the working of neurons rely on chemical reactions? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a certain constitution of like
rely on the
of ionic activity.
Yes or no?
I didn't hear that question because I was just saying it's not just chemical activity, it also requires electrical impulse and a certain constitution of ionic activity. But yes, okay. So what was the next question?
Even better, because those also are subject to quantum effects, which we don't know whether they're deterministic or not.
So what does that mean? So that means that we know.
You're obviously not using the philosophical concept of deterministic. You mean something else. What do you mean by deterministic?
Okay. So, yeah, so, like, as far as I understand it, the question about whether sort of quantum mechanics is deterministic comes down to whether or not there are any hidden variables which would account for whether things like electrons do one thing versus another thing, whether they would, I know, go through a sort of grating that's been polarized in a particular way, whether they wouldn't. And so, if that,
what does that have to do with
there
neuronal
are
firing?
kind of,
Can you like build a bridge between quantum mechanics and neuronal firing for me?
thank you. That's a great question to ask. Yeah, that's what I should do.
Yeah.
So here's an example. So the functioning of a neuron is affected by the level of hormones in that neuron in some circumstances, right?
Wait, hormones
The
in a
level of
neuron?
hormones?
In a neuron.
Well,
Hormones are physiological.
neurotransmitters.
Well, different types of neurons
Sorry?
like transmit different types of neurotransmitters, right? So, and then different receptors are capable of receiving those neurotransmitters, but neurons don't fire because of neurotransmitters, right?
Somebody's trying to put in some clarification.
Let me put this another way. Another way. I can.
1 second.
Let
me read this, and then you can clarify or correct. Somebody in the chat says he is saying quantum states having to collapse upon observation is a sign of indeterminism due to them seemingly having to change states in the past. I don't see where that's related to what you're saying, but so please clarify.
I'm not sure if I. Yeah, I'm not sure if that comment. If I agree with that comment or not. Listen.
Well, I can't be sure either. I don't know what you mean.
Well, yeah, so you're saying that something about neurotransmitters, and them being required.
Yeah, and so, like, for example, kind of the amount of the background level of acetylcholine, that would make a difference about whether whether one neuron manages to sort of pass on the message to another neuron, right?
If you're talking about if you're talking about like receptors, right? Like, so like if you look like at the connection between neurons, like when they're communicating with each other, there's like a cleft, like a gap between them, and they essentially kind of like secrete that neuron into that gap, and then there's uptake on the other side for that neuron to receive it. So if you're saying that in order to transmit that, like in order to transmit acetylcholine, there needs to be there needs to be at least some level of endogenous acetylcholine in the brain to be transmitted, then sure, yeah.
Okay.
Or if you don't have enough of it, like if you have lower dopamine, for example, then like just endogenously, then then there's physiological and cognitive effects. Okay, I agree with that, but I'm not sure where you're angling at.
When we see, there's a video that I love that I show a lot that is a paramecium, a pair of paramecium, who don't realize at first that they are being engulfed by an amoeba, and then too late, they both realize what's up. They get the chemical signature. They're now surrounded by this amoebic structure, and there's some kind of chemical cue that they realize they're in trouble. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't do anything else, but they can detect the chemicals to realize they're now being ingested, and so they go into a fight or flight mode, and they both panic, and they're flying around in this little enclosure that they're now trapped in, and they're running around in desperate panic before they are eventually killed by the amoeba. These organisms are unicellular. They don't have any neurons, yet they have an awareness of their surroundings and a desperation when they realize they're in trouble. So that tells me they have a degree of consciousness. It may be a very low. They're not going to contemplate Thoreau, but I mean, they have a consciousness without any neurons. And there are other unicellular organisms that have been able to show a degree of memory and of reason and things like this, like putting slime molds through mazes and that sort of thing. So I don't think that it necessarily must be neurons in order to have consciousness. And I don't know what the chemical mechanics of that are, but for our guest's argument, that would imply that the paramecium, upon its death, has an immaterial spiritual aspect of it that goes somewhere.
Okay. Aaron, like a particular theological outlook might say, yes, that's fine, that's true, or a particular theological outlook might say that, that the creator has only granted a certain subset of organisms souls. Like, either is fine with overall theism or overall belief in souls. As for Shannon, and like, I thank you for letting me sort of pose this in a sense of questions. I'll try and refrain from doing that. Basically, so if we agree that like the level of acetylcholine in either the brain in general or in a particular neuron would have some impact on that neuron's passing on the action potential to a neighboring neuron, then like
not
the
passing
level
on
of
the action
acetylcholine
potential.
is going to
No,
be-
no, I think that's important. So it doesn't pass on the action potential, right? The action potential is just the trigger that initiates like the electrical impulse to transmit that like to the neuroreceptor. It doesn't have anything to do with the level of neurotransmitter, right? So once that action potential happens, whatever amount of transmitter is available will be transmitted. So if it's a lot or a little, it'll be transmitted, but it doesn't affect the action potential at all. They don't interact.
Yeah, you're right. So my mistake. I meant sort of the passing between one neuron to the other, causing the next neuron to fire. That's what I meant.
On the receptor side,
anyway.
No, it doesn't cause the other one to fire either, because action potential is what causes them to fire. Like what would happen is on the receiving end, like do you know what like glia cells are in the brain?
I can't remember.
No, okay.
I
So
learned
like
this a
glia.
while ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah, me too. So I'm gonna do my best. So on the other side, when the neurotransmitter is received, it's not just that neuron that's receiving the neurotransmitter. It goes in some of it goes into the area, and it also like sends message to like glia cells, which are like they're kind of like action cells that like connect different portions of the brain, and they're like more important than we think they are. And if there's like a bit too much neurotransmitter, like if you drink a bit too much and you have a bit too much dopamine, for example, you may be like releasing more dopamine than you usually would, and it's like flooding more areas, or the receptor on the other side that is usually that's used to just receiving a little bit now is wide open and it can receive it all. So it's not like getting more action potential. It's just those like interconnected cells around it are like feeling the effect of that neurotransmitter being received. And then it's having cognitive impact.
Yeah, I didn't.
I hope I'm not derailing.
Do you know how SSRIs work? This is super interesting parlay into SSRIs.
Yeah.
So SSRIs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And they actually work in a super strange way, in a counterintuitive way. What they do is they actually keep because all of the neurotransmitter that floods into that cleft between the sending neuron and the receiving neuron, like it sits in that synapse, like in between, like in that cleft between them. And and once some of it is taken up by the receiving neuroreceptor, whatever's left over is sucked back in. Right? So it's sucked back into the sending one so that it can be like resent the next time the neuron fires. What SSRIs do is they prevent it from being sucked back in. So it actually doesn't give you more serotonin. It just stays in the synaptic cleft between the sending and receiving transmitter, so that once the receiving transmitter has absorbed the first part of the serotonin and is able to take more, there's some available because it hasn't been sucked back into the originating cell yet. So yeah, so I think that, but that doesn't make it fire again. You know what I mean? Like that's why explaining how SSRIs work help. Like that's what, like you get a little bit more serotonin that way, but you're not getting more serotonin because you're sending more serotonin. You're getting more serotonin or there's more serotonin available. It's just that the mechanics that usually like bring it back in, like soak it back into the sponge, that sponge isn't soaking it back in, and it's staying there to be available once the receptor opens again. So the levels aren't necessarily the important thing. It's the mechanics of the receptors, like what they are capable of taking on the receiving end, not even just what they're capable of sending on the sending end. So I'm still not sure what you're getting at with the level of receptors, because there's ways to augment it. Like SSRIs are a good example, and they do work for depression without making more. Like a lot of antidepressants create like a pseudo neurotransmitter that like mimics an endogenous neurotransmitter. SSRIs operate a little bit differently by affecting the mechanics of the synapse itself. Does that make sense? Like, so we're like where like the level isn't necessarily the important thing, it's the operation of the mechanics.
Yeah, that does make sense, and I did learn that a long time ago as well. That's an interesting example.
Me too. We learned a lot of the same things a long time ago. Weird that we differ.
Yeah. Thanks. But my line of thinking, though, that can be applied to the actions of these chemical channels as well, because whether we're talking about chemical channels or whether we're talking about enzymes kind of working to help produce acetylcholine or serotonin,
in our stomach,
like all of these are examples. All of these are examples of basically chemical reactions where whether or not the desired chemical reaction takes place will depend on when the two sort of molecules come into contact with each other, whether or not the surrounding electron density, which you can visualize as orbitals, overlap in a way that allows for the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital of one molecule.
Lots of physical mechanics need to take place. I agree with that. Like there's all kinds of physical mechanics required, but I'm still not getting.
Yes.
Yeah,
what you're angling at. So, like it sounds like you're agreeing with me. Like there's a lot of complex physiological mechanics in the material space required.
I don't think either of you are addressing the source of his belief.
Yeah, me either. I'm trying to get there, but I don't understand what it is yet.
For example, do you believe paramecium goes somewhere when they die?
So I'm not that would depend on my particular theology, like my particular religion.
Why?
But a theist in general, I'd really prefer to keep going with like,
neither here nor there. Do you believe that paramecium goes somewhere when they die? Do you believe? So that whether it depends on your particular theology, we are talking about your particular theology. Do you believe?
I don't know what my religion says on that particular issue. I don't know what it says.
Does it matter? What about what you think? This is one of the irritating things about religion. I remember asking my mom as a kid, "What do you believe?" And she about certain things, and she would say, "Well, I believe what the Mormons believe." Like, what do you believe? Don't you have any independent thoughts? And you're going to tell me what you believe what the Mormons believe? Do you even know what the Mormons believe? She didn't. She just blindly believes whatever her superiors tell her to believe. She believes it because they do. No reason at all. Not even a presence of reason in her mind. She believes exactly what she's told because she was told to. That's it. That's all. Are you in the same situation?
It depends on the question. Because
okay,
I want to know where the antenna is.
Paramecium go somewhere when they die.
Well, I don't know about that particular question.
Well, we're not talking about what you know.
That doesn't mean
we're not talking about what you know. We're talking about what you believe.
Okay, I don't have a firm belief on that particular question.
Do you have a firm belief that anything goes somewhere when it dies?
Yeah, I believe that humans go somewhere when they die.
But not dogs?
I don't know about I also don't know.
You don't know about
my
human souls either. So we are only talking about belief. We're not talking about knowledge. If we're talking about the afterlife, we're definitely not talking about knowledge, because nobody knows dick about jack about that. They're just talking about what they believe. Knowledge is demonstrable. You can show what
okay.
you know. In this case, we're not talking about things you can show. We're talking about things you can believe. Do you believe that humans go to some place when they die, but somehow for whatever reason dogs don't?
I'm agnostic on that question.
Okay, have you
Specifically
considered it?
with relation to dogs?
What would be the value?
Yeah, I considered it.
In where do you imagine the line of demarcation is for what level of animals have a soul that goes to an afterlife, to what level of animals don't?
My strong belief is about humans, and about non-humans, I don't have strong belief.
Okay, why do you have a strong belief in something that is not evidently true and is, in fact, has evidence against it?
Well, I started giving my model for how the sort of typical objections to souls are actually reconcilable. But you interrupted me when Shannon was interrogating my model.
Oh, I didn't realize you were winning. Let me just sit back and let you continue with her.
I just want to know where the antenna is.
Thank you,
Robert. All right, where's the antenna?
Thanks. So
where's the antenna?
We got to the fact. We got to me explaining that, like, the outcomes of these chemical reactions come down to the sort of specific locations of electrons within their orbitals. And you agreed with that, right?
I gotta jump in. I gotta jump in for a second. So Shannon has given you, and I've given you two, not to the degree, but we've both given you reasons to understand that your thoughts, that your consciousness, that your actions are entirely physical. You are proposing that they are somehow magical. Where is your evidence of that?
Yeah, so that's a different question, and
no,
I agree.
That's the same question
the
we've
evidence
been asking
that
from the
be,
beginning.
No, that's different from asking, what is this antenna? How can it work? Because that question implies that any model of the soul necessarily is wrong, or necessarily contradicted by the available physical evidence. Right. Okay.
So there has to be, in science, religion does this thing. Let me just set a ground for you, just knowing where I'm coming from. Science is not.
You're breaking up. Hello?
Yeah, you broke up on me too.
Hello?
I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he's froze up.
I want to hear the electrons. So now you're getting down to the atomic level, right? So you're just basically saying
it's an absolute fact, even though they can't show there's any truth to it at all. So they're making up shit and calling it fact. We call that lying. So that's the difference in our position. We are saying that something is true because we have this evidence to support that it is true. You're saying that we have that something is true because there's no evidence of it and there's evidence against it, but you're going to say it's true anyway. I'm asking for justification for that.
Okay. So
is your electron positions the justification?
So there's basically my justification for theism, for me believing in theism, isn't the same as what I'm doing when I explain that there is a plausible model for souls working in a kind of antenna-ish way. So I admit that kind of there isn't positive evidence for a kind of antenna model, but I am claiming that it is consistent with the available physical evidence.
You're saying it's viable.
No, it isn't.
Is what you're saying.
No, it is not consistent with that at all.
I'm saying it's viable.
So is it viable?
We haven't got there yet. How do you know?
It's not only not consistent with the physical model, it's contradicted by it. So you are saying something is true, can't show how it is even possible, and what you're saying is contradicted by the facts, all of them. So let's restart that. Give me a reason, something we can show to be true, why you claim this thing.
Well, if all I need to show, if I'm attempting to show that something's viable, like I don't need to show that it necessarily kind of is the best supported model, because something can be
you have to
viable
be able to
without
show
being the best.
you have to be able to
supported
show
model.
the facts that back it up. The reason for that conclusion. And it has to be a reason
Well,
that we can all verify. Yes, this is true. And then it also supports this position. Shannon has been very eloquent in explaining reasons why your assumption are not consistent with that. I've given you a completely different set of reasons, and I would like to do so more, but I think I'm out of place in doing that right now. Your position is unsupported. You can't show the evidence to back it up. In science, we're done. You can't show a reason to believe what you do. Come back when you've got something.
Well, so the thing is, like, we have to lay out what the objectives of the conversation are. So, one objective is to show that, you know, that this antenna model of the soul is viable, and isn't
How is it viable?
available
Please, I'm
evidence.
dying to know. I am on the edge of my seat, dying to know how it's viable right now. So positions, yeah, you had me at position of electrons. So we're at the atomic level now. We're all the way down to the atomic level. What's next? Why is it viable?
Yeah,
where's the mechanism for interaction?
Yeah, I've been dying to tell you as well. Okay,
For the love of God, do it,
at the
please.
atomic level, the positions of electrons. Many of the leading physicists, and like their interpretations of quantum mechanics that are non-deterministic. Like, we don't know for sure whether quantum mechanics is deterministic, and what that means is, like, we don't know for sure whether when an electron is at a particular position, whether it will do a particular event or not, or whether, if it's in one position at one particular moment in time, whether it will necessarily be at another position at the at the exact next moment in time. That kind of
at the
thing.
electron level of an atom. Yes, I'm with you. But just a few more seconds, because I think I see where you're going, but it's not. I still think it's unviable, and I want to explain to you why. But go ahead, and then I'll go.
I'm looking forward to that as well. And so basically, if there is this potential for kind of electrons to be undetermined by kind of the prior physical condition, then maybe it could. Maybe the extra variable or cause is something supernatural, which could be like souls.
That's moving the position of an electron and an atom and anything. Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying, since there's things that we observe that are inexplicable about atoms at a quantum level, therefore there might be some space there. Like, once you go all the way down to the atomic level. But here's why I'm not sure that's viable.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I hold up this pen, right? You probably can't see it. You're probably not actually watching me. But if I hold up this pen, it's constructed of a bunch of atoms, right? Like, inarguably so, everything is. Like, at any one point in time, what you're saying is that any of the atoms in this pen can operate differently than they did previously. Any one of them at any given time. But even if we see that at the quantum level, at the electron level, we never see anything like this just physically unravel and reconstruct itself in a completely new constitution, in a completely new way, that every atom just like reconstructs itself. We also don't see them go out of and into existence at the atomic level, right? It's certainly not in enough volume to just create, like, to just uniformly come together in the appropriate constitution to create a sodium or potassium ion, for example, which has lots and lots of atoms in it. So if your argument is, if you go all the way down to the atomic level, we can see that there's quantum variations that are inexplicable. Therefore, something about the entire physical mechanic that we agreed upon of the brain could be interacted with that way. I still don't think that you've explained the interaction mechanic. I think that you've just said there's some room at the like if you go all the way back down to the very atomic level, there's still a little bit of space there where I might be able to jam it in. But it's not changing the way that the matter of the brain works, not changing the way the neurotransmitter works. It's like you're not just whole cloth seeing ions pop into existence and whole cloth seeing neurotransmitters pop into existence. And that's what would need to happen. Not one atom has an electron in a different position than we would have anticipated it being prior. You'd need more than that, right?
Okay, so let's go with one of your counterexamples, like a sodium ion. So like let's imagine the weakest possible action potential, right? Like an action potential that's kind of limping along, and it's been so kind of it's so weak. It has such a kind of low enough gradient that it's just about managing to go on. But if it was any weaker by even a single kind of atom, then it just wouldn't continue propagating. Is that something plausible?
No, because that's not actually that's not the way it works. It's not like there's like a gradient of like degrees of action potential. Like once an action potential,
you have
like
to show that there is at least a possibility for what you're talking about. And all you've done so far is the argument from incredulity. You don't understand brain chemistry, therefore magic and souls. Show me that a soul is possible despite all the evidence against it. And one of the things that I tried to get you to understand is, if dogs don't have a soul, well then why do we deserve to have one? And if they were to go to some sort of afterlife, what would be the point of a dog going to some sort of afterlife? Because if you try to argue that humans do have some kind of point, I think you're going to have a hard time justifying how we do when they don't. Or I think you would have a hard time justifying why they should and why we should. I was never able to separate humanity from the rest of mammalia, if you like. Other animals think and feel just like we do. We're just the only ones who are so arrogant that we can pretend, that we will continue after we're dead.
Yeah, like, I understand that, like, a sort of speculative conversation about whether a particular model of souls is viable, which gets into like the nitty gritty of neuroscience, maybe isn't very good viewing for you. And I can understand if you don't want to kind of continue that conversation. So
I understand what you're trying to say, though. You're saying
you guys
to it. If you could show that there was substance to it, that there's just a there, that there's something to actually look at, then there would be something to talk about. But you haven't, and you can't ever. It's never going to happen. We've been having this conversation for thousands of years. Believers can't ever cough up anything, ever. I want to believe this is all they've got.
Well,
about your action potential.
Question about whether.
But it's like a threat. I think I understand what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, like, maybe like if there's a wobbly electron some sort of wobbly electron at the ionic level, then that means that maybe an action potential that previously would have been like a big action potential ends up being a little action potential, and that has impacts. And maybe that's how the soul gets in. Like maybe that's the antenna, is just like mildly tweaking action potentials, but action potentials are like a threshold that's reached, right? So either that threshold is reached or it is not. It's like an on-off switch. It's not like, oh, there's a bunch of sodium and potassium ions. This is going to be a big one. This one's going to be a big one. Oh, that one only had a couple. That one's just going to be a little baby action potential. Action potential is just a way of saying that the electronic impulse has been released because
Okay.
the cell membrane shift. took place.
Okay.
Like, and I don't know what I don't even know if I can
Sorry.
conceptualize what that looks like. But we do have to let you go soon. I'll host again eventually. I promise. But, like once every 2 to 3 months, I kick around here. So like, go like read some stuff. I'll read some stuff. Come back. We'll talk again because
I'll send you an email.
Oh God! If you think I'm going to read my emails,
send you an
bless your
email.
heart. You can do that. It'll be in the inbox with the rest of them.
I think the common good.
I don't check my
I
emails.
think that these conversations should be had publicly for the common good, for other people to listen to. I would. People are always wanting to have chats with me in email and just to waste as much of my time as they possibly can. I don't think it's a waste of time if it's on the fly off the top of our head, like it is right now, off the cuff. Neither of us is prepared for what the other one is going to bring. I think that's going to be better.
Also, I don't check my email. So there's that. You can send it. I'm not going to try and stop you.
I texted you. I texted you 20 minutes ago. How come you haven't answered? I'm like, because I'm an old man and you texted me. I don't check texts.
Exactly. Aron knows how to turn on his phone.
My text messages. I might accidentally see my text messages 2 or 3 days from now. So if you've sent me important information and I need to know it in the next 2 hours, call me. Don't wait for me to eventually decide, well, maybe I should check text messages.
I'm the exact opposite. There's no reason on earth I'm willing to allow anyone to call me. I don't want to talk on the phone to you. Don't call me. All right, Robert, thank you. Have a good rest of your day. I enjoy your good soul chat. Call back again sometime. See you later. Bye. All right. We've hit the end of the road.
I'm sorry that we were going totally different directions on that.
You and I were having two separate conversations with the same dude.
Yeah, you're going into the chemistry, and I'm going into the logic, and this is where I think he was. This is where I think the real problem is, and you could explain everything about it. If you had a PhD, you could continue to explain everything that your PhD would require you to know, and he still wouldn't get it.
Even if his model was right, I don't think it's viable. Your point stands though, because he would be he would have whatever dissonance is required to apply it inconsistently, to like apply it in one area and just refuse to apply it in another area, which like that's inconsistent in a logical as well. Even if he was right, I don't think he is.
I kept hearing him say, we don't absolutely know. And this is the thing I always hear. If you can't conclusively prove that I'm wrong, then I'm right. That's the position of the believer. I don't know, therefore I know.
That's my motto. I'm
right. I'm afraid we had 2 calls.
Don't call me.
We got 2 calls we never got to, and I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry. I'm the problem, for the record. I have to go do a bunch of community work. I was going to say stupid in front of that, and I don't know why, but I got to go do a bunch of community work and then work in the morning. I'm very sorry. And I live in Narnia, where it's later, where all the Canadian flags from. My apologies.
All right, $5 Australian. Darren McAuliffe. Besides Homer, what are the primary sources for Greek myth?
I have no
Alcohol and imagination.
A little bit of psychedelics. Are we alternating?
Your turn.
Tag am I yet? $5 from Trayton. Found out today that Native American cultures also had flood myths that resemble those of the Bible. How is this possible with no overlap of culture? Because anybody who lived in an area with floods.
Everybody that lives along a coastline, which is most people, experience floods. So every culture has floods. And you know what? There's only one way to, if you want to exaggerate things to their nth degree, flooding the whole world, common. That's everybody comes up with that story. Interestingly, a number of cultures came up with a global flood of blood and another one of a global flood of beer. And so and all of all the details are completely different. In the northwestern United States, which is the one I'm thinking about, where they're talking about Native American cultures, this includes that. The only survivors were a man and a woman who hid in a seashell while all of the animals were turned into fish. All the terrestrial animals were turned into fish by the gods, and then were turned back into animals again after it was over. And why didn't they do that with the people? Well, why did God abracadabra every other animal into existence, but had to use a golem spell to create Adam, and then it had to use a transformation spell to create Eve? It's just because the inconsistency of mythology. That's all that is.
Fair enough. You get $5 from Taj. Why do smart people believe stupid shit? I heard about a neurosurgeon that thinks the pyramids were built for grain, 6-day creation, and is a Trumper. I mean, there's varying types of smart. I think you can know a lot about a complex subject, but not have like the discernment required to be able to, wade through source methodology in an appropriate way in other situations.
You're also assuming that logic applies. Logic does not apply to religious beliefs, like at all. There's a lot of smart people who understand, who know how to investigate every other thing that they consider, but they take a completely different course when it comes to their religious belief. Why do they have to change tactics? Because they know on some level that they're full of shit, and that what they believe, what they make believe, what they pretend, cannot withstand the same level of scrutiny that they would apply to every other thing. Yeah. So there's some things you just have to believe because you got to believe what you got to believe, and everything else you can be rational about. Is this one mine? Yes.
Oh yeah, that's
$10 from the gray. I'm sorry. $10 from the gray-haired gamer. The source is the force, of course.
That was wild. Like, if I had known he was going to manifest me into existence, I would have had notes ahead of time. I have some suggestions. If you're going to do any tweaks, source, I would like to not have MS anymore, and I would like my gray hair gone. And then circle back with me, and we'll workshop the rest of it later.
Like how he said that he can't acknowledge that anything exists unless he called it into existence himself.
Yes.
So, who are you, Morgan Freeman in a white suit?
Yes, that's exactly who he is. 100%. Like, and he should apologize to everybody for making me, because I'm a terror. And nobody deserves it, and he just brought that onto the world. So, $5 from Alishana Silverbow. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Please forgive me. John is an example of what happens to someone who doesn't own a coffee table. Yeah, that's right. Except for I don't own a coffee table, but that's not by choice. It's by force. I'm being held hostage in a home with no furniture, and I don't know if I'm ever going to escape, but one day I'll kick over enough coffee cups on the floor that somebody will get me a coffee table.
Consider other people's situation. I mean, you're living in a house with no furniture. I'm living in a house with random boxes full of snakes.
Random boxes full of snakes. Yes, exactly. Where am I supposed to hide my snakes? Where do my snake boxes go? Did anybody think about that? What am I supposed to do?
Just let everybody know I am kidding. They're not in boxes.
All right. Me again? Oh, $5 for monkey at a typewriter. Shannon, I have to thank you for teaching me I have aphantasia. Oh, interesting. Cool. I always thought people who were picturing things was just an analogy. Good show. Yeah, no, it's not. Some people can literally hold vivid, like almost photo quality pictures in their head. I'm not one of those people. I'm also not one of those people that's incapable of picturing anything, but it's difficult for me, and it's kind of like disambiguated. Yeah, it's interesting, eh? All of the different modalities of thought.
I read about other people's conceptual capability, and I am jealous.
Right? Like I want to I wish it was like a buffet, and I was like, okay, well, I'll take the logical stream of thought. I want whatever helps you like figure out how social interaction works, and maybe something that makes me tolerate small talk without wanting to jump off a bridge. I would love that one, because my face goes. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I hate getting into somebody's mind to see how they think, because it's always disturbing. I've had so many arguments when I was a kid where people would interrupt the answer to ask the question. It's just so enormously irritating to me. I remember when I was 8 years old and I had an argument with my babysitter at the time when she tells me about Jesus turning water into wine. And I knew at 8 years old that water was H2O. I didn't know the chemical formulae for fermented fruit juice. But I remember asking the babysitter, how did he take 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom and turn it from water into this fermented fruit juice? So he's got alcohol in fruit juice somehow. And I later looked it up. As a grown up, I looked it up and realized, okay, it just depends on how many carbons you add. But my babysitter just lost her mind that I asked a rational question like that, because I'm not trying to stump her. I'm 8 years old.
You're
right? I
asking
just
questions
want
that
to
doesn't make
understand.
sense.
That's why I asked the question. And her response was, how dare you question the word of God? No reasoning.
Yeah, just because you're not supposed to, just because it's taboo. You're just not allowed. It's just understood that you don't. Because God forbid you did, then what would happen? You'd end up like Aron and I, happy,
$5
well-adjusted.
from Darren McAuliffe. I keep walking over you. I don't mean to. I'm sorry.
Oh
don't
my
mean to
God,
speak
give her.
over
You're
you.
fine.
Okay, $5 from Darren McAuliffe. You can see someone thinking about God on an MRI. Can you see an inner monologue? Is the MRI distinct from the voice of a voice a psychotic person hears?
Not necessarily. So what you can see with people who have inner monologues is an activity in the auditory centers. So the auditory centers of the brain are localized in like a completely different area than the visual corners, and my screen's just like turned off. I don't know if you can see me or not. My screen's just turned off.
I
Okay,
can
maybe
see
you can now. All right, cool. So
can see.
if you look at an MRI, like if you're a visual thinker, you're more likely to have activity in the occipital lobe, which is like the back of the brain, because that's where you're first processing visual information. I believe I'm going to go completely off the top of my head. I can't remember if it's temporal or parietal. I'm getting it confused, and I want to say temporal lobes are where auditory processing takes place. Anytime you're doing the thinks, you're going to have some activity, like decent amount of activity, and like perifrontal cortex, which is like underneath your eyes. That's where like a lot of logical processing and stuff happens, and just general overall global activity in the frontal cortex, and like midbrain structures like the hippocampus, because you have to remember stuff to think about it, are also going to be activated. But depending on the type of thinker you are, like whether you're having like one or the other modality of perceptual thinking, like if you're thinking in the form of perceptions, like hearing words as a form of auditory perception, seeing things as a form of visual perception without the external modalities, then you will still see that activity in the brain. So there is a difference in the brain activity. Is it different for a person who is it different than the voice a psychotic person hears? It's perceived differently and is different. A psychotic person, if I'm thinking about it the way that you are, like, they hear a voice saying like, go kill that guy, or like whatever. They're hearing that and perceiving it as something external. Like they're seeing it as something external to them that they're perceiving internally. Like I'm aware that when I stop talking, my brain is still going to continue talking until I die. It's a nightmare, actually. You don't want to be me. Just forever. Steady stream. That's still going to be happening. I'm aware that that's me unconsciously, like communicating with myself in my head. So I'm not interacting with it as though it's like an external stimuli. So yes, it is different. Yes. Long answer. Sorry.
Which makes me think about telekinesis, or telepathy. If we were to assume for a moment that telepathy is possible, let's just say that it happens. How does somebody? I mean, we always thought that, like Scatman Carruthers said in The Shining, that he and his great aunt would, when he was a child, they would have conversations without either of them saying a word. That's people with an internal monologue. If you don't have that, how do you transmit thoughts that include reasons for actions?
Interesting. Could you still maybe have the perception of an auditory experience, even if you don't have your own, like a perception of an external auditory experience being received? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how magic works, so I'm not going to be good at explaining it because I don't think it's real and I haven't put a lot of thought into it. This is like,
a
could
month or so
Superman
ago,
beat Batman in a fight? That's what we're doing right now. We just want to talk about.
A friend of mine used links for telepathy tapes, and they had bought into this telepathy thing. They thought it was real. It was a very compelling argument from their perspective. It all looked like a verbal sleight of hand, from my perspective. And I saw great gaping holes in everything that was being presented, but this other person didn't see it that way. And they were talking about how, animal intelligence and animal telepathy and everything. And I walk a dog, and I can't understand why this dog doesn't understand that you can't charge at a delivery truck that's coming at you at 40 miles an hour. There's no way to win that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any indication of telepathy, not even a possibility of telepathy at all, but there's no way to explain this to this other person. Sometimes when something has an appeal to you, you're just going to buy it.
That's it.
Whether there's anything there or not, and you might sacrifice the rest of your reason for that.
Some people don't care, I don't think. Like they don't care about like having a consistent epistemic like framework to like fit reality into. Like it doesn't matter if there's inconsistencies, if they find something interesting, which sometimes is cool, right? Like sometimes that's fine. Like whatever floats your boat. You want to go to a psychic and give them your money for no reason so that they can tell you what they found out about you on Facebook. Like just serve yourself.
Well,
I don't know, do whatever you want. But it
couldn't
be me.
There's a psychic a mile and a half from me, and I've been meaning to do this for years. I'm going to go into this psychic, but I'm going to do this because I want to make a video out of it.
Oh, okay, that'd be fun. And do some Randy stuff. Are you gonna rig the system like Randy did so that?
Yeah, I don't know what this
so that
whole
the psychic
system is. Yeah, I wish I got more out of that conversation, but the guy
I know bailed, just jumped ship. Too bad. Or maybe you got disconnected. I should give him more credit. I should be more charitable. I should try to be more charitable.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You're pretty intimidating.
Me? No, I'm not. I'm like the easily the most like empathetic, easygoing person probably on the face of the planet. I just never shut the fuck up, and I talk about stuff nobody cares about with big words. So I seem way more intimidating than I am. You've met me in person. I sat on your cooler and drank a beer with you in Texas. You know I'm not intimidating.
It's your turn to read.
Oh, shit. Okay, see. $5 monkey to typewriter. Thank you. Shannon, I want to know about cellular epoxy, epoxy, but yes, I see what you did there. My phone looks so boring at the moment, listens back. Or if you want to talk about cellular hypoxia, I did. Every time somebody talks about near-death experiences, I'm like chomping at the bit to talk about sigma-6 receptors and cellular hypoxia because there's so much interesting research on like, because there's different types of DMT, which is a dimethyltryptamine, I think it's what it's called.
Can we do a show on that? Can we do a show on that? I'd like to make a video talking to you about your perspective on the near-death experiences and exactly what you're saying right now. Can we?
Yeah, sure. If you could find a day in my life that I'm free, God help you. Yes, sure. I will absolutely do it.
Drop some bullet points so that you don't miss everything, so that you cover everything that you wanted to. Let me know when you're ready for that. I don't know. It'll last as long as you think it needs to last. If you can do it in 10 minutes, we'll do it that way.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'd love to hear your perspective, because I am sick to death of these near-death experience arguments. They're so fucking stupid, and they've never gotten any better.
No, they don't. They don't stand up to scrutiny, but like there is an explanation for it. Like, so cellular hypoxia is when like your cell is like it's dying for lack of like respiration, essentially, right? Like it just isn't getting what it needs to sustain itself from the external environment. Like it's dying. It's not going to be able to function anymore. But there's some things that you can do as a brain. There's mechanisms that are built in to keep you alive a little bit longer, right? And one of the things is that we have.
I've seen studies that show that laboratory mice, when they're deprived of oxygen, go through a stage of what they call hyperconsciousness.
Yeah,
where the brain is desperately trying to deal with that reality and come up with another solution.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's like people sometimes feel euphoria before they pass too. It's But like cellular hypoxia, DMT, not like the kind like that you get like on the streets or whatever. Our body produces like super
I don't know where
teeny,
you get
little
yours.
tiny amount. I don't on the streets, Aaron, on the streets. That's where I get my produces small amounts, and that DMT kind of exists because it combats cellular hypoxia. So you can it acts on a sigma-6 receptor, and that sigma-6 receptor like hyperactivates that cell. But because the cell's not functioning appropriately at that point in time, it's just like trying to stay alive, and then it's like essentially just got like a jolt or whatever. It's not functioning appropriately. You're not perceiving appropriately. It's not like at its full capacity. So you hallucinate. Like you hallucinate, whether conscious or unconscious, you go into like a hallucinatory phase, which is why when kids do that stupid thing, we're like, how old are you? Close to my age. When I was in junior high, these kids did this stupid thing where they would like do this against the wall to try to make themselves pass out because they would like get a hallucinatory experience. That's why that works, is because you're literally killing your brain cells, and it activates endogenous DMT, which is a different type of DMT, but operates in a functional hallucinogenic way.
I don't know how old you think I am, but I'm definitely not your age. I am an ancient evil.
You're not much more than 10 years older than me. I'm in my mid-40s. How old am I? Am I 43 or am I 44? I'm either 43 or 44. I can't remember. I think I'm 43.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah, I'm 43. I was born in 1981. Yeah, I'm 43.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. You're decades off.
Decades? I thought it was 10.
Decades. $10 from Deanna Tickle. Applied for a position with in my town. There's an oath, includes "So help me God." How to let them know I prefer a secular oath or just take the oath? Religious idea may affect chance of being approved. If your job depends on it, protest later through some other avenue. Secure the position first, is what I would say. Yeah. If it's not that big a deal, I would swear on a phone book, because at least the phone book is true. However, they don't make phone books anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, you operate better from the inside of places too, I think, to orchestrate change. Sometimes you can get in. $10 from Connor Runda. Good to see you both. Can't wait to listen later. I was wondering why Aron uses Jehovah over Yahweh, given the consensus and lack of J sounds in Hebrew. Love both your content. Sliante, and go fuck yourself, Jimmy. It's very important.
Okay,
the last part is the most important.
The reason was that I was misinformed early on. So I had heard all these Jewish people saying that their God was Jehovah or whatever. I'd seen all these references to it. And then the name, the Tetragrammaton, I realized if there is no J, then of course it would begin with a Y. Yeshua, Bar Yosef is Jesus' name. Yosef is his father. So who would Jehovah be? It would be Yehovah. So what is the YHWH? So Yehovah, right? Perfect. Just add those three vowels into the Tetragrammaton, and you've got the basis for Jehovah. However, a number of biblical scholars have confirmed to me that that it would not be pronounced that way. That the consensus is that it is Yahweh, regardless of where Jehovah came from. That is not historically based. Regardless how it ever came to be, because we know that in history people have been using that name quite a lot, but that originally wasn't. And so when I don't have a way to prove somebody wrong, I shut the fuck up. So the scholars say it's Yahweh. Okay, it's Yahweh.
Cool.
And somebody throws in, also may be pronounced Yahoo. Yes, I've heard that concession too. It's not Yehovah, but it can be Yahoo.
That's funny. $5 from Monkey to Typewriter. Next pronoun protester. Oh my God, that annoyed me. To call should be required to talk like Mr. T. Robert doesn't recognize the woke gender. Robert pities the fool. I don't know if you noticed, but initially it said, like, I don't believe in pronouns. And I was looking at it and I was like, I is a pronoun. Like, quietly held this poorly scribbled thing up on the screen because I didn't want to interrupt the conversation, but also like somebody needs to say something about that. I don't believe in pronouns. I don't believe in pronouns.
I changed it to doesn't know what pronouns are.
me, this person. Don't believe in it.
Good to talk to you again.
Oh,
good to talk to you
fuck.
again, by the way. It's been a long time.
I'm a fucking delight. You're right. You should be happy. I know. I'm just kidding. Sorry. I need to be medicated more. $5 from Luciferous Ratspeed. Shortcut for speaking in tongues. Say should have bought a Honda, but I bought a Kia. Real fast and roll your eyes back. Okay. Should have bought a Honda, but I bought a Kia. Kind of works. Also, it's a pleasure talking to you too, Aron. We haven't talked to you in like years. It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been a while. £5 from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. How did you come up with that name? I'm curious. How do we know what parts of the brain deals with identity slash self-recognition, recognizing use as separate individual from others? I guess that means us as a separate individual from others.
I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know that there's a universal theory of consciousness that is really currently like that good. I think Mark Soms comes close to it, and he would put it like in and around the brain stem, like really back all the way down the line through a couple specific structures that I'm going to completely forget, so I'm not even going to try to remember them. But I have his book on the shelf back there. It's called The Hidden Spring, and it explains a lot about like how kind of like emotions are at their base. It's like something that is meant to derive some sort of physiological action, and then thought is kind of like come out of that, and then consciousness is kind of built upon it. And he describes it as a hint. But anyway, I don't know the answer that there's like a place in the brain. Maybe there isn't a place in the brain. Maybe it's like a unification of like a multiple interacting components that gives us a sense of self-identity and awareness. But I don't think that anybody has a good answer for that question right now. And I'd be skeptical of anybody who says that they do.
I remember when I was 7 years old thinking, I had a stepbrother for like a year or two when I was 7, and I remember wondering why is my consciousness limited only to within this one body? Why do I only see things through these eyes? Why can't I also see things through his eyes?
Interesting. You're a deep thinker when you were a little guy.
All right, it's my turn to read. All right, $5 from Bosco. Aron, your book is great. It has been an awesome addition to the library. Thank you so much.
$10 from Jessica Gallagher. Hi from the west coast of Canada. Here's some coffee table cash. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Hello from the east coast of Canada. I don't have your flag on today. I'm sorry. No BC. Just the other ocean provinces minus Newfoundland. You, I think.
So, $5 from ZM. I appreciate your time and learning from you. That message must have been for you.
No, that's for you. 100%. If he had said, I appreciate all of the inane rambling about brain science, then that would have been for me. $20 from Coach Frankie. 2 of my favorite hosts, badass. Thank you for all you do. I'm a longtime fan. Thank you. Thank you, Coach Frankie.
Thank you sincerely.
Thank you for watching us for a long time.
$5 from Monkey at Typewriter. SQ, you have the patience of a saint. Maybe that's why you're okay with knee-high obstructions populating your home. Creating
I don't know why everybody wants to be on the wrong
line.
side of history. All of you, all of you coffee table abolitionists are on the wrong side of history. It's going to be demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I just feel sorry for you when you look back on yourself in the future. But history will not be kind to you. But so be it. $19.99 from Jeff Mason. Did I have a stroke? There's nothing there. Am I supposed to read something? I don't know. Or did you just donate money? Thank you. Thank you so much. If you just donated money.
$10 from Unstillborn. What a name. Unstillborn. Dental plan Lisa needs braces.
Dental plan Lisa needs braces. Dental plan Lisa Tiffany, it's bright. You don't watch The Simpsons, clearly. Okay, never mind,
No.
Aron, that's fine. $20 from Raven 200. My favorite story from my tribe is Coyote turning himself into a baby so he can trick some monster woman into adopting him so he could break a river dam. Jimmy, go fist fight Cthulhu on an infinite coffee table in Relia. I think, I'm sorry, I butchered the last one, but that is a cool story. Like, that's a lot to go through to break a dam. That's a lot of steps to that plan.
It's difficult to pronounce some of the words from the Eldritch horrors. $10 from Mr. Borka 10. Oi, Robert, when are you going to take your head out of your arse, bro? Is it too much to have an honest chat? Was a Maya mate? I don't know.
Was a ma?
Used to be
What's a ma?
For using your head.
Hashtag Team Coffee Table.
Team Coffee Table.
These are the people on my team.
I don't know which accent he was going for. I did the best I could.
$10 from Raven 200 again. You see that like button? You see the seductive, sensual like button giving you the eyes of allure? The like button wants you to go hit it. Go hit it good from behind. Oh my God. Go right ahead, baby. Kinky like button gang. I feel like I was just inadvertently violated into like button fan fiction porn or something. I'm not sure what just happened to me. Not sure how I feel about it. But yeah,
£5 from the fuzzy logic. I appreciate all the inane rambling about brain science. Also, Aron.
Also, Aron. Aron's smarter than I. I wanted to ask cladistics questions, and I could just listen to Aron for 3.5 years talking about evolution.
You are too kind.
That's true.
Yeah, more of those videos will be upcoming. But thank you for saying it. All right.
Awesome.
Last words are yours, Shannon.
Thank you for letting me continue to come back here. I appreciate it. I know I'm a lot. I previously would try to be less, but now I'm just like unbridled myself these days. So you get what you get. And I appreciate everybody who watched. Thank you to Stephanie for call screening, my sister from the coast on the other side of the border where we don't talk about right now in Canada. And thank you to everybody who watched. Thank you so much to the moderators in the chat for always doing the moderating in the best way possible, keeping everybody safe, keeping everybody happy, keeping everybody engaged. And thank you to Margan for being the producer who has to corral us. And I tend to just talk until it eventually cuts me off. And a fun game I play is I go back later and I see what word I was saying when we